Welcome. My name is Leah Doozy, and I'm an agricultural economist with Compliance Services International. Today, we're going to cover how growers make decisions from an economic perspective. Like any other industry, agricultural producers, regardless of crop, are faced with numerous decisions. For some growers, the amount of information and choices can be overwhelming, leading them to avoid new technology or make uninformed decisions. Farm income and finances are consistently two of the biggest issues facing growers. How growers make decisions directly impacts income and finances. In this presentation, we hope to give insight into how growers make decisions specifically related to pest management, including who they turn to for information and why it is crucial to make the most appropriate and timely pest management decisions. We have two main objectives for this presentation. First, give an overview of a general decision-making process in agriculture and discuss the fundamentals of good decision-making. Second, discuss the importance of pest management decisions, the technology available to help make those decisions, and the environmental considerations that go into decision-making. Throughout the presentation, we will highlight the economic importance of effective and timely pest management decisions. It is important to remember as we go through the presentation that many pest management decisions can be short-term or long-term decisions, and therefore have short-term or long-term consequences. In the short term, pesticides, products, and application are a substantial expense to growers. In 2017, they spent over $17.5 billion on pesticides, excluding application, according to the 2017 Census of Agriculture. In the long term, poor decisions can lead to resistance issues, increased pest pressure, or environmental concerns. The decision-making process in agriculture is very similar to other industries. However, there are some aspects that are out of the grower's control, like weather. While growers can't control the weather, growers can make decisions that set their operation up for success, even when the market and/or weather do not cooperate. The decision-making process outlined by Chastain, Yeager, and McGraw in 1966 still holds true today, with some additional considerations. We're going to briefly walk through each of the potential changes and how they relate back to pest management decisions. For price changes, changes in prices received for commodities and prices paid for inputs, such as pesticides, can create problems that require decisions. Price changes need to be considered for both upward and downward movements and in the short term and long term. Related to human or labor changes, being able to efficiently manage the human side of decision making can determine the success and failure of a grower. Does the grower need to add workers for pesticide application or hire a custom applicator? That is a common question that growers are faced with. For natural or environmental changes, conditions that arise from nature can influence the operation's economic activities. These may include quantity and distribution of rainfall, diseases and insects, soil response, and biological processes. This is where pest management comes in, such as what, how, and when should a grower treat for a pest. Technological changes. It seems like there are always new advancements in agriculture, whether related to precision agriculture or pesticides. Growers are faced with new technology, and while some growers can't visualize how it will fit on their operations, other farmers are more than willing to try new technology. However, as with any change, it is important for growers to analyze and decide if the technology is right for their operation. Institutional changes. All institutions are subject to change. However, many institutions, such as the United States Department of Agriculture, influence the economic and social agricultural environment. Changes in farm policy, changes in environmental regulation, changes in consumer preferences. These changes can impact how growers make decisions, especially pest management decisions. For example, designating a species as threatened or endangered under the Endangered Species Act may change what pesticides a grower can apply and how and where growers apply those pesticides. Once the change or changes are identified, then the grower, along with input from trusted sources, needs to clearly define the change, observe the conditions surrounding the change, analyze the available options, and decide on the best alternative. Many times, the hardest part of decision making is taking action. It is hard for growers and people in general to change habits or to go against their instinct. However, a clearly defined change with an appropriate solution makes the change much easier to implement on an operation. As I was putting together this presentation, I was reminded of an article I had read on AgWeb several years ago, outlining the fundamentals of good decision making. It was a short article, but had clear and concise steps. First, what decisions have already been made? What are current decisions that need to be made? For pest management, this may be related to seed technology. A grower has decided on a variety of crop to plant, and now they need to decide the best options for pest management. Second, the article quotes an agricultural economist from Purdue who stated, "Outstanding decision makers are exceptional at generating alternatives. Your choice can be no better than the best of your set of alternatives." It is very difficult to make an informed decision regarding pest management if a grower doesn't know what their alternatives are for treatment. Third, good decision making starts with relevant and reliable information from trusted sources. This also may include reviewing past records or notes to evaluate the effectiveness of a prior decision. Fourth, identify concerns and then define objectives from those concerns. Fifth, use available tools and resources to plan for uncertainty. Making pest management decisions based on gut feelings can lead to mistakes that have costly consequences, both in terms of yield and cost of production. Sixth, be ready to act. Growers need to make decisions and then act. Pest management decisions, especially short-term decisions, should be implemented in a timely fashion for the most effective control. I would also add a seventh fundamental: document the process, the limitations, the results, effectiveness of the decision, any information that may help make a timelier and more effective decision in the future. Operating costs generally include seed, fertilizer, chemicals, custom services, fuel, repairs, purchased irrigation water, and interest on operating capital. While each state typically has enterprise budgets for the major commodity crops in the state, the Economic Research Service provides cost and returns by region and for the U.S. each year. There are differences between regions related to the seed and pesticide expenses based on pest pressure. In 2019, seed and pesticide costs as a percent of operating costs were the lowest for oats at 21% and the highest for soybeans at 52%. Due to the expense of pesticides, it is important for growers to make sure they are answering the right question and fully understand the short-term and long-term consequences, both positive and negative, of that decision. A quick decision may solve the immediate need, but if the long-term problem is not addressed, then the decision was not set up for success. A prime example are decisions surrounding pest resistance. Herbicide and insecticide resistance are major pest management concerns for growers. The primary impact of resistance, especially herbicide resistance, for most farmers is lower yields, increases in herbicide expenditures, and/or additional labor expense. Research from Georgia estimates that herbicide-resistant palmer amaranth has cost Georgia's cotton industry over $1.2 billion, and this weed continues to evolve. Palmer amaranth is just one of a long list of herbicide-resistant weeds in the U.S., and the list and location of these weeds continues to grow. Monitoring pests and making control decisions requires accurate pest information, understanding of the biology and life cycle of the pest, regular scouting, monitoring weather conditions, trapping pests, understanding action and economic thresholds, and keeping records for evaluation of strategies. Imagine a grower who produces corn, soybeans, sorghum, sunflowers, winter wheat, oats, canola, and barley throughout the year. Just managing pests is a full-time job. That doesn't include planting, nutrient management, marketing, harvesting, and all the other tasks that a grower has to manage in a given year. Understanding and implementing the environmental requirements for pesticides is critical for environmental protection. It is site and product specific, and growers must understand the different requirements between each product that they apply on their operation, including proper tank mixing guidelines and restrictions. The federal list of threatened and endangered species is always changing, such as newly listed species and designated critical habitat, changes in designations, and range map refinements. The example I just gave of a grower with 8 different crops throughout the year is a real operation. It is my family farm in Georgia. We make pesticide decisions throughout the year, before the crop is planted, while it is growing, and after it is harvested. It is a never-ending process of learning, monitoring, managing, and evaluating. The next step in good decision-making is identifying alternatives, and in many cases, identifying alternatives is dependent on available technology. There are several ways that technology can influence pest management decisions and provide a variety of alternatives during the decision-making process. The adoption of technology has economic consequences for growers, and while there are numerous types of technology available to growers, I'm going to highlight two: genetically engineered seeds and precision agriculture. Genetically engineered, or GE seeds, were commercially introduced to the U.S. for major field crops in 1996, with adoption rates increasing rapidly in the following years. The USDA Economic Research Service, or ERS, monitors the adoption of GE seeds in the U.S. Currently, over 90% of U.S. corn, upland cotton, and soybeans are produced using herbicide-tolerant, insect-resistant, or stacked varieties that are a combination of both herbicide-tolerant and insect-resistant traits. Although other GE traits have been developed, such as virus and fungus resistance, drought resistance, and enhanced protein, oil, or vitamin content, herbicide-tolerant and insect-resistant traits are the most used in U.S. crop production. While herbicide-tolerant seeds are also widely used in alfalfa, canola, and sugar beet production, most GE acres are planted to the three major field crops: corn, cotton, and soybeans. Depending on crop and production system, choosing to plant GE seeds can alter farmers' revenue, operating costs, and input use. The adoption of GE seeds have several benefits, such as reduced insecticide use, simplified weed management systems leading to time and labor savings, and increased use of reduced tillage. However, as discussed previously, growers must make pest management decisions considering the issue of pesticide resistance. GE seeds are typically more expensive than conventional varieties. However, there may be cost savings related to pesticide use and adoption of reduced tillage, as was the case with glyphosate-tolerant soybeans in the late 1990s. For conventional varieties, there are growers who realize a price premium on their non-GE crop and find yields to be comparable for their specific operation. When we think back to the initial slides about the decision-making process, growers evaluate changes or investments based on what is best for their operation, considering their strengths and limitations. This is particularly true when choosing the most appropriate seed variety. Precision agriculture technologies are quickly becoming the norm in farm production, but it is dependent on the type of operation and the technology. Precision technologies such as tractor guidance systems using global positioning systems, GPS soil and yield mapping, and variable rate input applications, or VRT, such as fertilizer, chemicals, and water, help growers gather information on changing field conditions to adjust production practices. Based on research from ERS, U.S. farms adopted precision technologies at different rates and for different crops between 1998 and 2013. Guidance systems had the highest adoption, used on about half of planted acres for crops like corn, rice, and peanuts. GPS soil mapping and VRT lagged behind due to technical and economic reasons. Adoption rates are under 25% of planted acres. Lowenberg, DeBoer, and Erickson published a review in the Agronomy Journal in 2019 related to worldwide adoption of precision agriculture. They listed three main points. There's been a rapid adoption of some precision agriculture technologies worldwide, such as global guidance systems and associated technologies such as sprayer boom control, especially in mechanized agriculture. 2, there has been a slow adoption of VRT due to the perception that precision agriculture adoption is only about VRT. And number 3, there is very little use on non-mechanized farms in the developing world. Here in the U.S., Purdue University conducts a survey of precision agriculture dealers in Indiana. In 2019, they found that for growers, farm income pressure was the primary barrier preventing them from adopting or expanding their use of precision agriculture. They were also concerned about the perceived cost of services being greater than the perceived benefits, as well as lack of confidence in recommendations. In many cases, there are clear benefits of precision agriculture technology. For example, in Florida, research has demonstrated that savings in chemical consumption by growers using VRT sprayers in mature blocks of resets has consistently averaged 25% to 30%, which is similar to VRT fertilizer application savings. More savings come from the reduction in tank fills in the form of time, labor, and fuel. As outlined earlier in the fundamentals for good decision making, having relevant and reliable information is an early step in good decision making. Traditionally, research has shown that growers turn to university extension, private industry crop advisors, USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, other farmers, family members, and the USDA Farm Service Agency. However, this is dependent on demographic factors and the type of information they are seeking. Recent research in the Pacific Northwest demonstrated the importance of other producers and agribusiness crop advisors, as well as university extension and independent crop advisors, in providing information for growers to make informed production management decisions. Additionally, growers are getting more of their information from the internet. The same study showed that over 63% of farmers in the study indicated that they use the internet daily to obtain farm-related information, and 16.9% reported using it at least once or twice weekly. Growers are increasingly faced with decisions related to how to maintain a sustainable operation, where sustainability relates to productivity, the environment, human health, and the agricultural economy. However, environmental concerns are often not straightforward or easy to address. Aside from soil and water quality, which are common environmental concerns regularly discussed, environmental concerns may also include weather variability that makes timely pesticide application difficult, or increased rainfall intensity, which increases potential for erosion, even with conservation practices. Additionally, there are regulatory requirements that growers must pay close attention to related to pesticide use, such as label language regarding potential human and environmental hazards, as well as being aware of federally listed species located within or in the vicinity of their operation. For growers, deciding is never limited to just one consideration. They must be aware of all the pieces of the puzzle. In addition to regulatory requirements, food companies and consumers are pushing for transparency in how crops are grown and use of sustainable farming activities. For example, Field to Market, the Alliance for Sustainable Agriculture, is a collaboration of farmers, agribusiness companies, brands, retailers, and civil society, academic and public sector partners working to create productive and profitable opportunities across the agricultural value chain for continuous improvements in environmental outcomes. Currently, they have over 140 members. They state their work is grounded in science-based tools and resources, unparalleled system-wide collaboration, and increased supply chain transparency. We just discussed about sources of information for growers and tools, like the metrics developed by Field to Market, help growers to make informed decisions considering the outcomes and trade-offs, which is the next step, sound reasoning. Focusing on addressing environmental sustainability, there are federal, state, and local programs that provide both technical and financial assistance for implementing and managing conservation practices. Federal programs through USDA include both working land programs, such as the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, EQIP, and the Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP, and land retirement programs, such as the Conservation Reserve Program, CRP. Under the 2018 Farm Bill, it was projected that over 50% of federal conservation funds would go to working lands conservation programs, EQIP and CSP, from 2019 to 2023. A wide range of environmental concerns are addressed through working lands conservation programs, such as water quality concerns due to sedimentation, degraded wildlife habitat, and inefficient irrigation water use. When considering conservation practices, an individual practice or a conservation system will provide numerous benefits. For example, a riparian forest buffer will address a wide variety of concerns. It may address concentrated erosion, such as bank erosion from streams, shorelines, or water conveyance channels, or it may address soil quality limitations, such as aggregate instability, organic matter depletion, and soil organism habitat loss or degradation. Additionally, it may provide field sediment, nutrient, pesticide, and pathogen loss reductions. So nutrients and pesticides would be less likely to be transported to surface water and groundwater. Sediment would not be moving to surface water. Additionally, it may address degraded plant condition, such as plant productivity and health, plant structure and composition. Also, terrestrial and aquatic habitat may be improved through a riparian forest buffer. So you would have additional habitat for wildlife and invertebrates, fish and other organisms, and you would potentially have lower elevated water temperature. The adoption of conservation practices varies widely across regions and crops. For example, growers in the Southeast have typically adopted reduced tillage on a higher percentage of acres than in other regions of the country. Additionally, in areas with specific conservation needs, such as the Chesapeake Bay area, growers have adopted nutrient management practices as well as buffers to help address nutrient loading in the water. A recent publication grouped the behavioral factors affecting farmers' adoptions of environmentally sustainable practices into 3 groups: dispositional factors, such as risk tolerance and farming objectives; social factors, such as need for social approval; and cognitive factors, such as perceived costs and benefits. Understanding the behavioral factors can help to shape policy and improve information provided to growers to help inform their decision-making process. In conclusion, there are 3 main points that I want to end with. First, appropriately framed and informed decision-making is imperative to effective and timely pest management. Second, recognizing and reducing barriers to adoption of precision agriculture and conservation practices will assist growers in making fully informed decisions for their operations. Some barriers will be easier to address than others. For example, increasing knowledge on the benefits of a technology or conservation practice is easier than reducing the cost of that technology or practice. Third, every decision that a grower makes has an economic consequence. Growers regularly overlook the time they spend on an activity or production process, underestimating the cost of a practice or production system. There are trade-offs to every decision, and that is why walking through a decision-making process is so helpful for growers when they are faced with one of the many changes and challenges facing their operations. On this slide, I've included some additional references that I used to put together this presentation and that I've discussed in the previous slides. I also included references on the slides for your information so that you can go and look up the specific topics that we talked about. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about how growers make decisions specifically related to pest management. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. I've included my contact information on this slide. I'm more than happy to discuss with you any of the topics that we've covered today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.